In September of 2011, a young wolf left everything he had ever known and walked alone into the unknown. He had no pack, no mate, no territory to call his own. What he carried instead was an instinct older than memory, a pull towards something he had never seen and could not name. And he would follow that pull for more than 1,000 miles, across deserts, over mountains, past highways roaring with traffic, through a land that had not seen a wolf like him in nearly a century. The world would come to know him by a single word: journey. This is the story of the loneliest walk in the wild, and the fragile hope it carried across an empty land. He was born in April of 2009 in the rugged Wallowa Mountains of northeastern Oregon. His family was called the Amnaha Pack, and they were pioneers. His parents' line had been among the very first wolves to return to Oregon on their own, crossing in from Idaho after generations of silence. For most of the 20th century, this land held no wolves at all. They were trapped, shot, and poisoned until not a single one remained. His family was bringing them back, one paw print at a time. He grew into a strong young male, around 90 pounds, with the thick gray and cream-colored coat of a northern wolf. He was the 7th wolf in the entire state to be fitted with a GPS collar. And so the biologists gave him a name with no romance in it at all. A code, a number. OR7. No one studying that collar's signal had the faintest idea what this wolf was about to do, or that the whole world would soon be watching. To understand what he did, you first have to understand a force that lives inside every young wolf. It's called dispersal. There comes a time when a young wolf must leave the pack that raised it. To stay means competing with its own family for food and rank. To leave means a chance to find a mate, claim new ground, and start a family of its own. So the young wolf walks away from everything it knows and gambles its life on the unknown. Most dispersing wolves don't go far. They settle about 60 miles from the territory where they were born, close enough to know the land, far enough to be their own. OR7 would shatter that pattern completely. He would travel not 60 miles, but more than 500 from home before he was through, and thousands more before the end. No one knows exactly why he went so far. Perhaps he was driven out. Perhaps he simply never found what he was searching for. But in the autumn of 2011, he turned his back on the Imnaha Pack, faced the setting sun, and began to walk. In an office in Oregon, a small dot on a screen began to move, and it did not stop. Day after day, his collar transmitted his location, drawing a line across the map that left biologists stunned. He pushed southwest, crossing one county after another. He moved through a brutal variety of country: high desert where sagebrush stretched flat to the horizon, ponderosa pine forests that smelled of warm bark and resin, volcanic lava flows, juniper woodlands, frozen mountain passes near the crest of the Cascades. Some days, he covered as much as 40 miles. He hunted what he could and scavenged what he couldn't, at one point feeding on an elk carcass just to stay alive. He drank from cold mountain streams. And like every wolf before him, he left his scent on stumps and rocks along the way, a message for any wolf that might be listening. But no one was listening. He was utterly, completely alone. And the land he crossed was full of ways to die. This was not untouched wilderness. To move south, OR-7 had to thread his way through a landscape carved apart by humans. He crossed Interstate 84, a river of speeding metal. He crossed Highway 26, Highway 395, Highway 20, Highway 97. Each one a gamble with his life. For a dispersing wolf, these roads are among the deadliest things they face.
In Oregon, in a single recent year, 5 of the 6 wolves killed by humans died the same way, struck by vehicles as they tried to cross. For every wolf that reaches the other side, another does not. And the cars were not the only danger. He skirted the edges of towns and ranches where a single rancher with a rifle could end his story in an instant. He moved through country where his kind were still feared. He had no way to understand any of it. He only knew the pull, south, south, always south. And he followed it through every danger the modern world could put in his path. And here, the story offers a detail so haunting it feels written rather than real. As OR-7 crossed through the Umpqua National Forest, he likely passed near one specific place, the very spot where the last wild wolf in Oregon had been killed decades before, back when a bounty was paid for every dead wolf. A wolf born to the first family to bring wolves back to Oregon, walking by chance across the very ground where Oregon's wolves had been wiped out. He didn't know. He just kept walking. But the people following his caller felt the weight of it. Something was happening here that was bigger than one animal. By December of 2011, OR-7 was no longer just a dot on a screen. His story had spread around the world. Newspapers tracked his progress. People who had never seen a wild wolf in their lives began checking day by day to see where he was, willing him forward, hoping against hope that he would find what he was looking for. A children's art and naming contest was held to give this wandering wolf a real name. And on January 4th, 2012, out of all the entries, one word was chosen. A word that captured exactly what he was. Journey. The people behind the name later admitted what they were really doing. By making him famous, by making the world fall in love with him, they were trying to make him too famous to kill. A name as a shield, a story as armor. Then, on the 28th of December 2011, near a small town called Doris, he did something no wolf had done in living memory. He lifted a paw on the Oregon side of an invisible line, set it down in California, and simply kept walking. He had just become the first confirmed wild wolf in California in 87 years. He felt nothing change. But to the world, that single step was history. An entire species, erased from California for nearly a century, had just walked back home on 4 silent feet. No fanfare, no witnesses. Just a lone wolf and the quiet click of a GPS collar, marking the moment forever. But Journey hadn't crossed all those miles for history. He had crossed them for one reason. The same reason that drives every dispersing wolf. He was looking for another of his kind. For 15 long months, he roamed across Northern California. He moved through the Modoc Plateau, the Lassen and Plumas forests, in the shadow of snow-capped mountains. He covered ground, looped back, and covered it again. He scent-marked. He howled into the vast silence. And the silence gave him nothing back. There were no other wolves. None. He had walked into an entire kingdom with no others of his kind. The only wolf for hundreds of miles in any direction. Picture that loneliness. A wolf is built for family, for the warmth of the pack, the shared hunt, the howl answered. And here was Journey, the most famous wolf on Earth, achieving something historic. and entirely, achingly alone. By the spring of 2013, Journey did something that surprised everyone who had followed him. He turned around. He had searched California for over a year and found no one.
So he pointed himself north again, back toward Oregon.
Not in defeat, but still driven, still searching, still refusing to give up on that ancient need. Across all his wandering, down through Oregon, deep into California, and back again, he would cover thousands of miles. Alone, on nothing but instinct and an iron refusal to quit. He had every reason to stop, to lie down, to accept that the world was empty. He didn't. And because he kept going, the story finally, at last, began to turn. Somewhere in the mountains of southern Oregon, in the rugged country around the Rogue River, the wolf's long silence was broken. He was no longer alone. He found a mate, a female wolf, drawn to the same wild country. And the wolf who had walked over 1,000 miles in solitude did the one thing he had crossed 2 states to do. By 2014, they had pups.
They founded a pack, the Rogue Pack, the first known wolf family in Western Oregon in more than 70 years. In the years that followed, Journey and his mate raised litter after litter. 7 pups in all would carry his blood forward. The lonely wanderer had become a father. Every danger he had survived, every highway, every rifle, every freezing night alone, had led to this. A single step across an invisible line had become a bloodline. Journey raised his family for years in the country he had fought so hard to reach, and his children inherited his restless blood. Some of them crossing back into California themselves, carrying his legacy even further than his own paws ever could. Then, in 2020, after nearly a decade, his collar went quiet. The wolf the whole world had followed slipped away into the wild for the last time. But think of what he left behind. One wolf, with no pack, no mate, and no guarantee of anything, walked over 1,000 miles into an empty land and refused to believe it had to stay empty. Because of him, wolves now moved through forests that had forgotten the sound of a howl. Because of him, a door closed for a century swung open. Journey didn't just find a home. He proved one was still possible. If his story moved you, there's more of the wild waiting for you every week right here. Subscribe and walk these trails with us. Until then, listen for the call of the wild.